want to welcome you to this conversation that we're having regarding the founding of Jubilee Festival. And we can say that it's pretty difficult for one individual to start something alone by themselves. Usually have help, a lot of people. And it's also fairly difficult for an individual to write history alone. There needs to be a series of interviews, a lot of different people, a lot of perspectives go into the writing of history. And so the history of the founding of Jubilee Festival is similar in many respects. And then you add 41 years to that. Add 41 years to it, whatever you do. So back in '78, we were just living our lives and reacting to the dynamics of the times. The late 60s and 70s, it was just a mere 10 years following the Orangeburg Massacre that really had a tremendous impact upon the entire state, and maybe the entire southeastern world. There was growing interest in reading and writing literature, Black literature, African American literature, so that African Americans were in the process of trying to rediscover themselves, trying to learn more about themselves. So a lot of people donned African names, and so there was a lot of change going on at that time. And so the organizations, political and cultural, reflected the times and the multiple dynamic factors that aligned in order for us to create this change that happened. And things don't just happen, as we all know now. They require planning and strategizing. So our goal today is to deposit at least what we know now and what we can remember from 41 years ago. And we might get some of the stories twisted up a little bit. You're welcome to check us and ask us questions about them. And so we were poised to change the world then. And I think that a lot of us are still very optimistic about it. Even though you have gray hair and no hair, we're still optimistic about it being a beautiful world. Who was C.C. Byers? We call her C.C. Her name was actually Cecilia, just as the founder's name was.
She kind of stumbled into that role via some contacts that she had. And she had, there was a group of African Americans who had been involved in the school, and they weren't clear about the role and function of the cottage. They wanted it preserved, of course. But the direction, the historical context, and the lack of, for want of a better word, religious format, created some conflict immediately after she was hired. That piece I do remember.
Was a great historian. She loved to crack jokes. She had a very humorous side. When it came to process, she was on it. And she was very adept at pulling people into her web, including people like the church groups that you heard sing. They probably wouldn't be allowed to go to most festivals. But what they are carrying on is a tradition that's hundreds of years old. And she respected that. And she was able to pull a lot of youth into the programming at the cottage as well. And so people are still doing things today that she did 40 years ago that were considered innovative at the time.
That's our basic was community organization, social justice, those kinds of issues. And I always have felt and believed in empowering people, teaching people to do things for themselves, doing for ourselves. I remember the co-op that I like this, that was my passion. Because from this group, one day we were at a meeting or something at Felton's house, and we were complaining about the cost of grapes. I never will forget it. And so that day, for whatever reason we were there, we all threw in $10 each, and there must have been 8 of us. And we all threw in $10 each. And that was our very first co-op. That was that family. And that day when we came from the farmer's market, we were just astonished with how much food we had for the $80. And from that group of 7, we just did so many different things. and buy the food on Saturday. We got family, we got kids, teenagers involved. I tried to find some of the pictures of those early days, but I just couldn't find them. I did find a co-op t-shirt that we made way, way, way back then. My kids say I'm orders, but this is over 40 years old. We had a co-op, we had the business structure set up. We paid taxes, sales taxes, and we even bought a van.
We bought a van,
We bought a van.
grant from the Consumer Co-op Bank.
And we got a van, and the whole thing of taking our kids with us out to the farmers market on Saturday. I remember carrying babies on my back out there and buying the vegetables, and then going to actually deliver the food to families, because we did do deliveries as well, and some of the senior citizens that I went to. And it just wasn't taking them a bag of food, but it was that interaction, that human interaction that they may have not had all week. And then I'm getting chill bumps even as I reminisce about it. And so that was an outgrowth of how we initially got together with Jubilee. I know Felton had some efforts with the arts and working with the community, and even I'll back up. One of the first years of the festival, I actually was a vendor. And as I look around at the vendors today, I was like, gosh, it has come a long way. I was really strict vegetarian at the time, and I remember I introduced this food called tofu. I had done baked tofu, and I was telling people it was chicken. But again, we tried to introduce things like that to the festival. I'm gonna see if I can find some tofu out there today.
There's no food like it.
But it was a more of a holistic, more organic growth of so many different things. And like I said, that's the thing that I participated in most. I was not in the founding of but we all had a little niche of what was our passion. And I must say the co-op was my passion.
She also had some backup too. There was a guy named George Kershaw who
Yes.
wasn't involved too much in the planning, but
Right.
he was a
He was
strong
our
guy,
strong
and that
man.
was her backup, her homeboy. Whatever she tried to push forward, George voted yes. And everybody needs one of those on their team. Somebody that'll vote with them regardless.
When I met Cece in Mount Simon College, it opened my eyes to why in Africa our goddesses are very important to us. It's very European that God is He. But in the African context, without Mother Earth, He up there ain't doing a darn thing. So we honor Him with the story of Mount Simon. I said, wow, determination. And when I got blessed to meet Majestic Simpkins, I said, well, I didn't leave Nigeria after all. I'm still at home. And I'm so much at home that some lady sitting there, she was so impressionable that our son is 40 years old.
How did you work that in?
Well, since he mentioned that, little occurrence as well is that
Make sure I'm grounded here.
Cece was smitten with one of the artists who was involved with the South Carolina Black Arts Coalition. He lived in Sumter, and we were like brothers, and so we were together a lot. And she was smitten with him at first until long, tall, black Wilbur came along.
As Marjorie said, Cece was interested in authenticity. Cece came to me once she learned that I was going to Charleston every Saturday with Buster, Thomas Mosley, to take African dance. He went down there to teach African drumming and to drum with the drummers down there. So when Cece found out that I was doing that, she came to me and asked me if I would share what I was learning on Saturday. So I would credit Cece with starting the first African dance group, at least starting the first African dance class in Columbia. And when we proved ourselves a little bit, she invited us to perform at Jubilee. I think we performed maybe the third or fourth year. And that same year, Chuck Davis performed. And we were so delighted. You do?
I have to trust
Yeah. Yeah, it was exciting for us. We tie-dyed our old fabric and made our clothes out at Femi's house. Femi lived in Eastover at the time. But after our performance, Chuck Davis came up to me and whispered in my ear, "Y'all was so good," not like that other mess some other people. Some other people did some African dance too, but we were so thrilled. And it was just wonderful that Cece wanted to include some homegrown African dance and thought that we were good enough to present to our kinfolk.
And the thing that sort of made that whole thing gel was that we had a drumming group, Spirit Drum Ensemble.
Yes.
That was headed up by Thomas E. Mosley. He's an attorney here in Columbia now. But that drumming group went back and forth to Charleston too.
Yeah, I went with Thomas.
A relationship with Olatunji Village.
Yeah.
So that we had people who were members of that religion to come and pay libation a couple of times. In fact, the South Carolina Black Arts Coalition had them come to the Arts Commission and pay libation in the Arts Commission, which was unprecedented and terrifying to Arts Commission staff members at the time. And they ultimately gave us a grant. We wrote the grant. You know, we had to work for it and had to really outline some things that we were doing, but we got a grant.
We're talking about this building, thanks to the generosity of Majestic Simpkins. I sat right there on that porch, and my attorney over there to close the house that I currently live in, that she gave me. You know what?
Closing on the porch.
Closing on the porch.
Very appropriate.
You know, right here, which is an exhibit of the spirit of the black woman. They, from what maybe I didn't know, Jessica didn't have any children, but she had so many of us as children, black and white.
Where did Brett Bursey go?
Yeah.
I thought he was one of her
And Brett Bursey was one, Mary Truesdale, everywhere Majestica was, look around, Merle is right around the corner somewhere. You know, but she was a mother for so many of us.
It all stemmed out of this woman
One woman there.
and was fed by that woman.
Okay.
Well, I think if we, to that point, recognize how things come full circle, unbeknownst to transplants like myself, and I'm sorry, my name's Anita Garrett, and this is my husband, Charles Weathers. Just this past August, in this place, literally in this room, we connected through the Progressive Network, Marjorie and Historic Columbia to celebrate Black Philanthropy Month, which a lot of people don't realize is held nationally in August, but my colleague and I, Jessica, decided that we wanted to celebrate Black Philanthropy Month in the Majestica Simpkins home. As you talk about how she gave back then, she is still inspiring us and our future generations to appreciate giving back. And so we had folks come to see the renovation and to participate, and as Marjorie shared some history about the space they were in, to acknowledge Miss Simpkins and the house and the history that took place here. So,
Who did we bank with for the co-op?
Victory Savings Bank, of course.
Felton, do you know I worked with Miss Majestica Simpkins at that day? I was between university and law school, and I don't know who got me that job. but
CC probably.
maybe it was CC. You had your first apprentice down there with Miss Majeska. I was so afraid of her. She talked
She
so
was mean
straight to me.
to everybody.
Goodness. But then she had sweetness with me as well, but.
One thing I'm gonna add, because I see here Columbia Chapter link, and just again to mention, and I think that contact person initially was Judy Batiste and Gloria James. Okay. And again, and they came to the college, and were very supportive financially, as well as Judy particularly, as I said, became, I think, the second president of the board, and she was extremely active.
Just arrived, was a dancer from Denmark, South Carolina, and she was involved with the South Carolina Black Arts Coalition. And I'm not sure whether that dance connection, where this relationship between Charleston and Columbia and Thomas Mosley, whether you connected to any part of that, Linda. You may have during that day.
I do.
You did. So we thank you for coming and sharing in this first conversation that we've had. We've not really talked about it and sharing in this first conversation, and we certainly hope that we will have an opportunity again to talk about the founding of it and talk about the many organizations that were involved in giving birth to it. But ultimately, we want to acknowledge C.C. Byers as the founder of this festival, because it would not have happened without her being in that position as the director. So again, I want to thank all the panelists.
I'm Femi.
Marjorie Dominic.
Alma Jane.
Valerie Boykinton.
And I'm Felton Dean. Thank you very much.